right, welcome everyone to today's Resource YYC Lunch and Learn. Our presenter today is Shauna Quigley, who is an amazing business and sales coach, as well as a sales trainer. Just so everyone's aware, Resource YYC is a co-working community focused on professionals. We have private offices, dedicated desks, and virtual office options. And we're definitely a place you should check out if you're looking for a nice hybrid work or co-working space. And over to you, Shauna.
Well, thank you, Rosemary. Thank you for the opportunity to present to the membership. I really appreciate that. And thank you for joining me because as I was saying to Rosemary just before you came on, this is a topic that I just am so passionate about and love so much. And what I will also say is this is going to give you an opportunity to get some insights that are going to help you to move forward, but it is in no way going to make you an expert at the end of this. You know, I'm certified in this. I've been studying it for, 3.5 years now. And I would say still a long ways from being an expert. But my gift to you is some new insights. I know that after a 25-year career in sales, I attended a sales training course and they introduced me to this, and it was mind-blowing to me. I thought, wow, how did I not know this before? And it just immediately, I was flooded with all of these memories about, oh, I could have used this in that situation, or, oh, that explains so much in different ways. So with that, there is a fair amount of content that I'm going to share with you, but there is an opportunity at the end. I've selected some of the slides and I've put it in as a handout if it's something of interest to you. All right. So with that, let's talk about this. So I geared this really towards sales, but I will also say that social styles is any sort of interpersonal interaction that you have. It can help facilitate and make that better and create much more collaborative, better quality relationships, etc. So I'm curious, are you interested in things like getting new customers, getting leads and referrals, closing more deals, getting more sales, handling objections better, selling more to existing accounts? Then, I think you're going to be inspired by some of the content. And I want to say first and foremost, as someone who teaches sales a lot and understands that ultimately, first and foremost, what we need to do is I preach and teach consultative selling. And it's really about fundamentally, we talk to our customers and we're solving their needs. It's not about this is our product and we're going to make it fit to the customer. So it's really all about that. And so what we're talking today is really about helping to really understand me. So this is the client. You want them to walk away really feeling like they completely understand me, understand what my needs are. And in this, it really starts that foundation of rapport. It builds the trust to open the door for business now, today, and in the future, and more increased sales, but also for referrals. So I hope you'll indulge me for a moment, and I would just like you to think about some sales situation that you had. So just think about that. And I want you to think about one that, you were particularly proud of, that you thought went well. Maybe you were like that person in the image that's just like, oh man, that was fantastic. So I'd like you to think about that for just a moment. Imagine that situation, what happened? What do you think was success criteria, etc.? So as you're thinking about it, probably some of the things that resonated with you was that you felt that you and your customer really connected. That, you really had a clear vision and understanding of what their needs were. Perhaps you felt really happy and excited that you really connected with this person. You couldn't wait to get back and see them and build, not only on this opportunity, but future opportunities. Feels fantastic, doesn't it? So now I want you to contrast that with maybe a sales situation that didn't go particularly well. In fact, you would say went really poorly. Oh, it doesn't feel good. So think about that. Again, think about some of the elements. You might feel like, wow, you and the customer just didn't connect. There was nothing that you said or did that they seemed to resonate with. They said no, which may have been a surprise to you because as far as you're concerned, what they told you about, this is the perfect solution. And maybe they didn't say no, but you walked away thinking there's opportunity here. You sent in a proposal. Maybe it was a quote. You tried to follow up with emails and they ghosted you. Nothing. Here's the thing. You often know when something went really wrong. And so maybe that didn't come as much of a surprise. But frequently we walk away going, yeah, that went really well, because we're looking at it from our own lens. And you follow up, you break the presentation, and they either say no or they ghost you. And you're left with this kind of question of like, why am I not being more successful with these customers? So I work a lot with entrepreneurs, consultants, business owners. And one of the things that I find pretty universally true in my experience with working with them is they conventionally have had no sales training. And their philosophy is because they don't want to come across too salesy, don't want to be inauthentic. So they have a tendency to sell the way that they like to be sold to. And that gives them a level of comfort. Here's the challenge though. Statistically, in the population, only 25% of the people are like you. So that creates a gap. It creates a gap with your prospective customer. 75% of the people are different from you. And you may not think that that's a big deal, but what it does do is if we're looking at it from the lens of, like me and what I like to see and how I like to be interacted with, that's creating quite a gap. And as you're going to start to see some fundamental things that come into play if we're not really paying attention to that. So what we're going to talk about today, and you saw that in the advertisement, is about social styles. So social styles is a highly rated, it's both an assessment tool, but it's, as you can see, it's also a training tool. And it has been done for 7 decades. Over 100 million people have taken the assessment. So it's highly validated and a great approach. And what they've found is extremely high results for people who've taken training to do what's on that left side of the screen: build rapport, overcoming objections, closing deals, satisfying new customers, bringing on new people, getting leads and referrals, your ability to sell more to existing customers. And in fact, some of the other things that they've said is being able to influence people that they might not have otherwise been able to influence, to close sales that they really didn't think were going to happen. So there's many really positive things about starting to add social styles to your toolbox. So what is social styles? Well, first of all, it's based on observable behavior. And that is, something that is something that's concrete. It's not judgmental. It is fundamentally behaviors that you have developed since childhood and very rarely ever change. And they're observable by others. So it's not like something that people are, can say, oh, that person is this or is that. It's not about their personality. You see the pie crust or the pie at the side. The observable behavior is everything that people see and do you doing, and it's those behaviors. It's not your personality. The personality is that inner filling. Maybe it's an apple pie, cherry filling, whatever your particular mix is. And one of the things that's important about that is interpersonal behavior. And so much of what we're talking about today is interpersonal behavior, how what I say and do affects and creates relationships with others. And social styles in particular has gone through and identified 4 distinct behavioral patterns that are quite unique, and just understanding those can really help to improve your communication and interpersonal effectiveness. So an observable behavior, what the heck is that? Well, it's the stuff you say and it's the things you do. And you can see in the center, there's a number of observable behaviors. And then you see to the left and the right, it says traits and judgments. Social styles and observable behaviors do not assign traits and judgments, but we as people often do. We'll have certain biases based on, the way we prefer to interact with people. So an example of that is you may go, wow, this person is, you say, this person is really honest. And maybe that's based on how much eye contact they have with you. Maybe you go, wow, that person's really arrogant because they're really loud. Or maybe they're facially really animated. Or maybe they're very rigid. And so depending on who you are and the characteristics of you, you may go, wow, no, I really like that person. Or maybe I don't like that person based on those things. So we inherently have biases and without being aware of it, we're assigning traits and judgments based on that. So I'm going to talk more about these observable behaviors. So first and foremost, social styles is an assessment tool that you can take, but it's based on observable behavior, so you can learn a lot without ever taking any of the assessment tools. And that's what today is about. So social styles has two dynamics that it looks at, or two dimensions. So the first one is assertiveness behavior. So this is all about how much you ask or tell, how you drive and influence individuals in your interactions. So as you can see on the top, the verbal behaviors are things like pace of speech, quantity of speech, volume of speech. And as you can see, as you go from left, it's slower, less, and quieter, moving across the spectrum to being much more fast, louder, and more quantity of speech. And then you'll see at the bottom where it says nonverbal behaviors. So these are the things like, how much am I using my hands? What's my body posture? What's my eye contact? So these are all things that you can obviously see and start to predict someone's behavior. So you can see again, from the left to the right, you're moving through in terms of going from very relaxed to very directive. So I'm now in the directive example, I'm really telling you what I think and feel. I am giving you my opinions, versus someone who's more ask assertive. It tends to be influencing conversation more through questions. All right. And you can see, again, from a nonverbal perspective, eye contact, is it less direct, more direct? Body position, are people leaning back or are they leaning forward? So those are the one dimension, that's assertiveness. There's a second one, and you can see that there is the dimension is going up and down. And again, verbal and nonverbal. So you'll see at the top, responsiveness is all about how much emotion that you have in that. And that's not to say, it's how fixed, how much emotion do you have in your communication? How much does emotion actually influence you? So you can see at the top, the people across the top, the emotion in the voice, the subject of their speech, the forms of descriptives. So these are the verbal. So are they much more task oriented? Is that what they're talking about? Are they spouting facts and data? Or if you look at the bottom, are they people who are talking more in opinions and stories? Instead of tasks, are they talking more about how the subject is about the people and how does this interact with people? And then you can see on the right, you have nonverbal. So again, how are they using their hands? What's their body posture? So these are all indications that you're going to start to notice in other individuals. And then you can take it and start applying the social styles model. So as you can see, there's 4 different social styles. Now, some people will argue you can't put all people in four sections, but you can. Statistically, there is no one section that is better than the other. In the population, everyone is equal, or every one of the styles is equal to 25% of the population. Now, you certainly can be for example, you could be an analytical, but have quite amiable tendencies. So, depending on where you are in the test, there are little squares in each of them that will drive you a little bit more towards a driving analytical to a pure analytical, etc. But that's a lot for us to process today. Let's keep it as simple as possible, because in the simplicity of this, it helps you to have some quick answers. So as you can see, there's 4. Starting from the left and going to the right, you have an analytical. So this is a person who their need is really to be right. So they need to analyze information. They want to make sure they have the right possible solution. And their orientation is really about thinking. So for these individuals, you want to provide them with lots of detail, lots of information, lots of facts and details so that they can really process that. And with that, they need time to process that information. Then you move across and you have driving person. So this is a person who likes to make decisions quickly, doesn't want a lot of detail, is very focused on results. Let's get it. A lot of times they're financial indicators that are very motivating to them. Then you move down to the bottom right quarter, and it's an expressive individual. And I would say so many people think of that really pure salesperson, that extroverted individual that most people think of. And that's probably a good sort of visual for what an expressive is. This is a person who really likes to control the conversation, likes to be the center of attention. They really dialogue through talk. And they really are people who like to be center of attention, and they need a lot of personal approval. Their orientation tends to be towards storytelling and spontaneity. So each of those, as you can see, has their innate strength and weaknesses as well. And then you have amiable. And so the amiable is a much more ask-assertive individual, and their orientation is really around relationships. They're all about the people and how does that affect them. Let's go into a little more detail. So social style highlights. So let's talk about the driving style. If they had a mantra, it would be, let's get it done now. Very fast pace. They work in the present tense. They really tend to avoid inaction. And they're the ones who tend to command and control. They do so much of the controlling of the conversation, the decision-making, and they're fast-paced. Then you have the expressive style, which is characterized by, I have an idea and it's going to be great. They're people who really emote. They're excited. They're fast-paced in talking. They really like to involve people. Here's the one thing, though. They tend to act impulsively because they tend to just, okay, I don't prepare a lot. I just go. I'm very invested in the relationships, and this is the way I move forward. And then you come across and you have the amiable style. So this is the one for all and all for others. And you'll see there that on the on the right side of the screen, both of them say faster paced. And what you'll see on the left side, you'll see in both the analytical and the amiable, they tend to be slower paced, slower to act. And that's usually, for one reason. They need to consult information. So in the case of the amiable, they're all about how does this affect everyone else? So they need time to process the information, talk to the people that it's going to be involved in. And so if you're going in and making a sales call to them and assuming that they're going to make a decision on the spot, then you're already off to a negative start, because they need to think about it. They need to involve others and make sure that it's the right decision. Likewise with the analytical. The analytical is the person who is going to take in all the information, provide them lots of charts and data and facts and anything you can do to support the argument. And then they're going to go through and they're going to look at that and they're going to analyze that. So as you can see, each of those is really quite uniquely different. And so understanding who they are and then adapting your style, which is the third component of social styles, is called versatility, is that ability to modify your behavior so that it connects much better with the people that you're dealing with. So an example of that, I say social styles earning their trust, because trust is the foundation for you to be able to make a sale. And so when you're looking at the driving style, I'm not going to go through all of these, but some of the things that are going to be really important to them is that you're going to keep up with their fast pace. If you're sort of sitting back and taking, a long time, your speech is very slow, those types of things, you're not going to connect with that individual. And that's not actually going to show them the confidence in your abilities. So be aware of who you're talking to and modify your style so that you really connect with them. And making sure this is part of that first slide of really understanding so that they go, you really know me and understand my needs. The expressive style, they're much more casual and open. They're very expressive and they love people who show their enthusiasm for their ideas, their hunches and insights. They want you to give them undivided attention. But here's the thing, they don't want a lot of detail. They would like to just brainstorm and think of the big picture. Don't tie them down with a lot of statistical analysis and facts and figures. They don't like a lot of detail. Then the amiable style. Part of earning their trust is being genuine, sincere, and authentic. Again, they're all about relationships. Make sure that you show them that you're committed to helping them. And avoid that. Remember, they don't make decisions fast. They need to take the information and survey other people and think about it. So, don't go there with the expectation of putting pressure on them to close the sale on this. All right. And the final one is analytical. So this one is, you really have to prove that you're capable. You focus on the quality and you have to show logic behind the statements. And similar to what we talked about, don't expect them to make a decision on the spot. The other thing about them is relationships develop over time. It's not that you won't be able to develop a relationship with them, but they're slow to moving forward in that. Their focus is very much about the task, the logic, and the emotions and the relationships start to evolve over time. So I'm going through a lot of information and I'm sure it might be a little bit overwhelming, but we're going to continue to get on there. Quick question, just before I go on here, is there a question that anybody has that you'd like me to address before I move on to the next bit of information? And Rosemary, if you see something that pops up too, then okay, silence. All right, so I've grounded you with some information. So how do you use this? Well, improving your selling effectiveness with others really comes down to 4 fundamentals. So the first is you have to know yourself. So you need to understand how other people perceive you. So often we go, well, this is who I am and this is what I, how I go forward. But I would challenge you to ask other people how they see you on these dimensions, the assertiveness and the responsiveness, and get a sense of where they put you on. Because as I was sharing with Rosemary before, there's over 100 million of these assessments that have been done over 7 decades. And what they have found is 47% of the time, a person will self-assess themselves as one style, and only 47% of the time, people agree with that. So just think about that. At least half the time, you're making assumptions that people perceive you in a particular way, and it's inaccurate. And so what happens, I find, in both a selling situation, but interpersonal relationships, people treat you as they perceive you to be. So all of a sudden, that's really setting up a dynamic that's incorrect. So if I come across as a very analytical person and you're presenting to me, but I'm really an expressive individual, you're not meeting my needs. So it's very important that you start to really get a good understanding of how people perceive you. And that will also help you to understand your behavioral preferences, because you probably have a bias. And remember, we talked about that. You treat, you're selling to people the way you like to be sold to. So it's really important that you start to understand those things. And then you need to control yourself. So if and I am an amiable person, I need to downplay my slow, more reserved style and speak faster and communicate with more specifics and details if I'm dealing with a driving individual. So I need to control some of the style preferences that interfere in my ability to communicate with the other individuals. And then know your customers. So again, the same thing, look at those observable behaviors and start to profile your customers. Now you might go, gee, I haven't actually met my customer or my prospect yet. How do we do that? I'm going to approach that in just a moment. And then fundamentally, you're actually going to do something for your customer. And that is, you're going to adapt your style so that you're presenting in a way that is consistent to their style orientation, their needs. And in doing this, you will have much greater selling success and effectiveness. So this is Max. I'm not going to read you his whole content, but Max was one of my clients, and he went through social styles, as well as a number of other sales coaching programs. But one of the things he found was that social styles really helped to maximize selling effectiveness for him. It built productive relationships, and as a result, his business has grown significantly. The other thing that I will share with you is pretty consistently in my practice, someone will come in for a coaching call and they'll be struggling and frustrated because of some interaction they've had with someone. And as we're sort of talking it through, they'll be upset and frustrated. And as they say, what happened? I might go, oh, so I'm curious, what kind of style do you think they are? And then they'll stop, they'll think about it. And then instantly they're like, oh, of course, this person is an analytical and I didn't give them the information, or I expected a decision right off the top. I didn't give them the consideration of providing the information in advance or giving them an agenda item. So, you know, what we're talking about has many, many applications. So you're probably going, okay, sounds fine. I'm face to face. I can see these things, but how can I do this in virtual or digital channels? Well, the reality is we're all now going to be selling in a virtual or digital space. That started 2 years ago. It has ramped up considerably. And, you know, statistically, people are not going back. Some of the latest things for B2B business I've seen is, as you see here, really growing. And customers now do not want to work with you outside of digital or virtual meetings. As much as 75% of the people want to maintain that. So, okay, all right. So how are we going to be effective with those people? Well, you know, again, it's appropriately responding to them from their buyer behavior, even in a virtual setting. So here's your current position. You might find them going, oh, I don't want another meeting. I don't want more discovery meetings. I don't want more pitches, right? I'm Zoom fatigued. But where you really want to take them to is in those dialogues that you're having, in those meetings, that you're walking away with, you know, I do want to give you the time. You're good to spend time with. You're my kind of person and you're useful. So remember I said profile people in advance. So these may be customers that you're currently dealing with on a day-to-day basis, or maybe there's some new prospects that you're going to be meeting for the first time. You can go on to LinkedIn and you can start to virtually profile customers. So things that you're going to look at, say you go to LinkedIn, you're going to review their summary, their role descriptions. And here's a really big tip. Look at the recommendation that others have written about them, because those will really show on those dynamics. So the assertiveness, you'll see in their writing, do they have few or do they have a lot of statements? You know, in their communication, are they talking a lot about tasks, facts, opinions, or are they more about people and storytelling? So this is not going to be, boom, I'm going to hit the target, but it's going to give you a really good idea so that as you're starting to communicate with them, you'll start to be able to continue to assess them virtually. Style hypothesis from email. I find this incredibly fascinating myself, and I know I'm pretty biased as far as social styles goes. But with 57% accuracy, if you look down here, driving, those individuals are very short. They're not saying hi. They're very quick. It's focused on task, personal at the end, teleassertive. Same thing applies for email, text responses as well. Expressive. Well, they're going to be high. They're going to have exclamations. They're going to have emoticons. They're wordy. They're unstructured opinions, and teleassertive. And amiable is all about you before them. So there'll be things like, how are you? They'll say hello. They'll say goodbye. The analytical will have organized lists, logical sequence, supporting facts. So again, now that you're starting to have some of those clear markers, it really helps you to identify who they are and what they are. Other sources of virtual profiling, we talked about the email, we talked about LinkedIn, but what about videos that they're sending out? What about Zoom meetings that you're mutually involved in, or whether it's Teams or any other structured meetings that you're having that you can see them virtually. Here are some great examples. So we're talking about someone who's very controlled in terms of emotions. You can see, well, they're fairly monotone. They're talking about subjects, facts, and figures. You can see these activities, right? Are they rigid in posture? Are they fairly controlled in their facial expressions? To the exact opposite. Are they talking with a lot of inflection? Are they telling you stories? Are they more people-oriented subjects? Are they using a lot of hand movement? Is their face really animated? These are all things that you can clearly see. Again, they're observable behaviors, the says and the do's. And then towards the right, you can start to identify, are they much more ask assertive or are they tell assertive? So they ask people if they're going to be a little slower paced in their conversation. They're going to have a quieter volume. They probably lean back. They might have a little less eye contact in your meeting. To the more tell-assertive are going to be faster paced. They're going to be louder. They're going to have directive use of their hands. So it might be like this, or might be this. A lot of it's for emphasis. They're going to lean forward and they're going to be engaged by eye contact. So those are a lot of little tells that you can start to be aware of and test it out. Next time you're in a meeting, start making note of these things. Does it work? I shared you about Max. Here's two other clients of mine who very different positions and type of selling options and relationships. Each of them have had substantial improvement. I love what Helen says is, I'm better equipped to help. She's a communication expert. And likewise, so is Lisa. And yet they found tremendous value in learning some of these clues. Lisa talks about she really overcame some bad professional habits. She learned collaboration versus controlling. So again, social styles is really a tool for your toolbox. And by using it, it really helps you to understand your customer far better so that you can co-create and work with them to have a clearer understanding of what their needs are and create a long-term selling relationship. It has the ability to pre-profile. So you're going and meeting with a prospect, getting to understand them, developing your sales call and materials that are going to be appropriate for them. It's also going to help you in terms of planning and preparing what kind of style. If you're meeting with an analytical individual, you're going to want to come with your data, your facts and your figures, your charts, your proof of what you're talking about. Whereas if you're meeting with an expressive individual, probably no details, and it's really going to be a conversation and a guided, exciting conversation talking about the big picture opportunities. All of this really serves to build that rapport that's essential for building trust, for current, initial, and ongoing selling. It really helps you overcome objectives. And one of that is because you're really listening to them. You're understanding what are their issues. It's also going to help to minimize some of the objections that are coming up because of lack of understanding. You're going to be more able to close more deals because they're going to feel like, wow, yeah, you're presenting the right thing. This is the right decision. You're having much greater influence with people and you're satisfying the customer. And hey, you're getting new customers. Those new customers who are really satisfied love to refer you. And it's an opportunity for you to continue to grow. It's an opportunity for you to close not only more sales with them, but through their referral network. And love this, selling more to existing customers. So I went through this really quickly. And so I'd like to open it up for some questions. And I'm happy to go back on some slides because I did go through things quite quickly. Just before I do that, just a couple little housekeeping things. As I promised at the beginning, I have prepared some summary sheets that if you were of interest, if that's something that you'd like a copy of, just take that email address down, shauna@quigleycoaching.com, and I'm happy to forward that to you for your reference. And likewise, if you have any other questions that you want to talk about as it relates to social styles. Also to let you know that I'm doing another Lunch and Learn with Resource YYC, and it's called Setting the Right Mindset for Selling Success. So that's kind of a fun, interactive one that talks about the different mindsets that people come in. And one of them absolutely is, I don't want to be pushy. So, what are some tactics around helping you to manage that? So that's March 29th. So I'm opening it up to you guys. What questions do you have or any examples? Love for you to open it up. You can come on video. You can talk to me right on the video, or if you would rather respond in the chat, that's great. Was this new information for any of you? Shauna, have you been able to, have you been using this in some of your selling efforts?
I think I've used it so much that I've lost what style my own is.
Okay, so go ahead.
I'm having a hard time, like when I look at the different styles, I'm like, well, I do that. And if in this situation, I'll do that. Well, over here, I would do it this way. So I've lost what my natural style is because I'm always trying to be the right style for the right place. And so now I'm not sure where. I think I lean to between analytical and driving.
Okay.
But then the other ones, I know that I need to be a little more forward and a little more, or just be different in different situations, which is why the information is good to remind myself that and there's a couple places where I could probably increase of where, like the expressive style I'm poor at.
Okay.
But just because I don't stick, I lean more analytical than expressive for sure, but it's one that I've forced myself to be, even though I'm in sales.
Yes. Well, thank you, Shauna, for bringing that forward, and congratulations that you're already using that. What you're talking about there is, if you were to do the assessment, you'd probably come up as super high on versatility. So there's a third dimension, which I sort of glossed over a little bit, and it's called versatility. And what that is that the level to which you adapt your style to support others, and you're making that conscious decision. And things are competencies and way you communicate, all of those things all factor into versatility. And what you also talked about was you think you're analytical and you have the hardest time dealing with expressives. So if you imagine the styles, that really is the polar opposite, right? You know, analytical was in the top, my top left column, and expressive is in the bottom right. And when they're dramatically across one another, they're about as opposite as they can be. So it's not surprising that you're challenged by those. And especially in any sort of interpersonal relationship, those are the ones that can be the most toxic. It's sometimes the hardest to really create strong foundation of trust and relationships in them because you are so opposite. So, you know, thank you for acknowledging that and noticing that. And I love how you've been able to identify these things. And now you're like, I don't even know what I am necessarily. So I would challenge you, although you did sort of think, I think I'm more analytical, is get some other people to give you an idea of what they think and show them sort of the dimensions. What is it that, you know, what are the criteria for, you know, am I very responsive or am I very assertive in my communication? And then that'll help to give you an idea. Now, what I will say is with versatility, and you sort of brought that up, if you're really high in versatility, you can go into different situations, and because you're so good at adapting to other people's styles, that people come up, you know, identify that, oh, well, you must be this. And as I was sharing with Rosemary, I had done this same similar presentation to a group in Washington, D.C. a few months ago. And the leader of the group was so inspired about this that he started to profile on the Zoom call different people of different members that he knew really well. And we had this great conversation about that. And then he says, and Shauna, I know absolutely you're an expressive. And I said, it's interesting. Tell me why. What was it? You know, and he went down all the checklists. And I said, that's really interesting. Unfortunately, what you're identifying is that I'm high on versatility. And he says, what are you talking about? And I said, well, I'm actually an amiable. And it stopped him dead. And he looked at me and went, no. And I said, yes, because, you know, here's the thing. I know that I'm presenting in a Zoom meeting. And to connect with my audience, I need to talk faster. I need to be more engaging. I need to, you know, I'm much more expressive, trying to connect. And that's an example of versatility, is really trying to do something to your audience so that the impact of what you're communicating and the relationship is connected. And to which he just started to laugh and he goes, well, that's, you know, now I'm not as confident as I was. But that's an example, you know, and Shauna, you've obviously worked on this probably a lot subconsciously to create those results. So thank you for sharing that. Anyone else? Does anyone have any questions?
Seems like we're good.
All right. Well, as I said, if you would like to have copies of the actual social styles summary sheets, just email me and I will send this content your way. And I hope that it's something that you can walk away with and have learned something that's going to really help you in your relationships with your customers and new customers, as well as your old customers and any other people that you're interacting with on a regular basis. It's been my pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Shauna. That was great. And so everyone, thank you for joining us and hope you have a great day.